All right, we've got an image that I took in 2019, and I really don't like this house. It's so boring. It's just gray. It's just ugh. I'm gonna go ahead and just get right into it. I've got 9 images here. Let's go through them. Base flash, side, adjacent room, window recovery, window pull, and then another window pull. All right, let's go ahead and highlight all these. I'm gonna go ahead and just drop the highlights and bump up the shadows. I do this for every image. So -45 plus 45. If you go past 50, it tends to get into this area where it becomes way too flat and it becomes too HDR-ish to where all the details are literally boosted in the photo and it doesn't look good. Let's go ahead and I'm gonna go down here. Whoops! I'm gonna go down here and I'm gonna remove chromatic aberration. Now I don't need to do any lens corrections on this because this was shot with a 17mm tilt shift. So there's not gonna be any profile corrections to enable. See, look, wait. Oh look, none. Let's go ahead and do this one by one because we need to basically just correct my mistakes, honestly, because I shot this way too bright. I shot this at ISO 640, f7.1, and 1/200th of a second. Now, these two, this 200th of a second, f7.1, that's all fine and dandy. ISO 640 probably didn't need to go that high. I could probably gone with 400 or even less. Actually, probably not. I was using an AD200, so maybe I'd say 400. Let's go ahead and adjust the exposure. Now, you can do this in one of two ways. I like to go and use the histogram here because you can adjust each slider here with the histogram. So, middle is your exposure, slightly left is your shadows, and then far left is your blacks, and then vice versa for the opposite side. Let's go ahead and just put that down a little bit. I'm going to do the same right here. I do want this image to be bright-ish, but I don't want it to be too bright. So I'm just adjusting the exposure right now, so everything is gonna line up fairly well. I think this could actually be a little bit brought up. This can be brought down. I'm going to show you why in a second. When I use this recovery layer, I like to have it a little bit brighter than the window pull. If you layer in your window pull in darken mode and then apply your repair layer in lighten mode, it's still dark. It's still a dark window, but it kind of gets rid of all this stuff here. I'm trying to, let's see, it's about 77 in the luminance. Let's see what this is. So it's still a little too dark. Let's go ahead and bring that up. Let's go ahead and just, all right, that'll be perfect. Ambient, pretty simple. Just bring down the exposure. Color doesn't really matter. We're going to be blending in luminosity, so that's not a big deal. Control A, that'll select all your layers. You don't want to do this when you're working on a full project. And when you're working on just a few select images, select the first image, hold down Control Shift, and then click the last image. That's going to select the images that you'll want to work with in your set. It's kind of like in Windows File Explorer and similar, systems. I'm going to go ahead and just use my actions here. I'm going to put this in the description of the video for you guys to download since it is very helpful. Most of these actions you'll probably not need. However, I do use the gray blend and the split blend and lighten and darken and then 50% gray ambient blend. And then I use the reverse layers. All right, let's go ahead and reverse these. So the ambient's on top and our base is on the bottom. I'm going to work with these two layers above it, those being the side to side layers. And what we can do is just hit Control Shift F2. That's going to basically play this action. If you're working on a keyboard that doesn't have dedicated row of function keys, so it's Control Shift Function FN F2. So like on a Mac keyboard, I think they're like that. On a few Logitech keyboards are like that as well. I'm going to keep this like this, and I'm going to do the same thing with this other base layer. So the base layer is going to be the third layer in the stack. All right, so let's work on these side-to-side blends. What we're going to do is I'm going to take the opacity. I'm going to bring it up to 100. I'm going to make it a big brush, 0 hardness. If you're wondering how I'm doing this, hold down Alt and then right click will allow you to basically resize your brush at will. You can change the hardness and whatnot. So I'm gonna go with 0 hardness and about there. What's my diameter? Like 2000 pixels. So with your layer mask selected, we are gonna want to paint this stuff out. So I'm going to disable this by holding shift and clicking on the layer mask. I'm going to see where I am in the picture. So I'm right here. So this area needs black. This area needs white. So that's going to remove. And then you hit X on the keyboard to switch over to a white foreground color. If your swatches aren't set to the default value, hit D on the keyboard. That's just going to reset them. I'm going to go ahead and just do that right there. And I'm going to do that right there. And then we got a basic blend going here. And then for this one, it's pretty simple. All we need to do is just get rid of some of this in the foreground. So let's just go ahead and just paint that right there. So that's our basic blend for our main area. And it looks pretty good. We might not even need a lot of ambient light in this. I am going to put some right here. So I'm just going to hit 5 on my keyboard. That's going to change my opacity to 50. I'm going to paint black right here just to get rid of that reflection in this, what is this called? Chandelier. Let's work on this. So we need to go into light and blend mode. I'm going to go ahead and click on light and blend. That's going to create a new layer. I'm going to go ahead and bring my opacity back to 100. You can hit 0 on the keyboard. That's going to bring it back to 100. Black mask, white paintbrush, paint. Simple. I'm going to bring down the opacity just a smidge, just so it's not too bright. I'm going to do the same thing for this one. I'm going to bring down the opacity. Beautiful. All right, let's work on these windows. What we need to do is blend these two. Let's go ahead and switch one of the window pulls into lighten. And it kind of knocks out these annoying little doodads here. I am probably going to cut this out, just this section here, just so it doesn't affect this stucco. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of this. So just going to do a little dab right there, and that's going to get rid of that. We've got a pretty even, flat window pull to go off of. So let's go ahead and group this, Command G, or Control G, I should say, and then switch the group to darken. That's going to bring in that layer real nice. So I'm going to go ahead and hold down Alt. I'm going to click Add Layer Mask, this button right here. And I'm just going to go ahead and get the lasso tool. This isn't necessary. I just like to have my selections be really precise. And I'm just going to go ahead with the layer mask selected, hit Control I. That will invert anything in the selection. Pretty simple stuff. I do want to fix this though. It's kind of weird right there. Let's go ahead and bring that in. I'm going to soften that edge. All right, cool. Beans. That's looking real good. All right, let's bring in this window repair layer. Put that into lighten. Look at that. It knocks them out so perfectly. All right, so that's our layer mask. Pretty simple. And it's just cutting down on that reflection in there. Maybe a little bit in the sky. Maybe. There we go. Let's go ahead and group these window layers. And we'll put... I'm going to just take the lasso tool. Where's the lasso tool? Here we go. I'm going to make sure our feather is like pretty soft at like 1 pixel. I'm just going to do a real crude selection around this stuff. And I'm going to invert it. So Command Shift I, and that fixes that up real nice. So in case you're wondering what that looks like, is just our selection inverted. Hopefully that didn't affect too much of the foreground. I don't think it did. That's nice. Cool. All right, let's go ahead and blend the ambient. We're going to do that Nathan Cool thing where we just basically just blended in luminosity at 50% opacity, but this is a little bit different. So Control Shift F3. That puts it in a gray mask and puts it into luminosity. So you kind of have a little bit more control over what you want the image to have ambient blended in. I'm going to take this out of here and I'm going to take this out of here. So I'm just going to blend that. Simple enough blend, gets the job done. Do have a few areas that are bothering me. Let's just bring in a hue sat layer. I'm going to take this little hand tool. I'm going to click this and see this? All this kind of like blue. Let's go ahead and desaturate that. I'm going to invert the mask, Control eye, and I'm just gonna paint in that saturation adjustment. I think there's a little bit of blue in there. Let me check. Yeah, still a little bit blue. Let's see. I don't want it to affect this pillow here. Perfect. All right, so the last thing I do is just a simple contrast boost in the curves adjustment. So I usually go with linear contrast. It's a super subtle contrast boost, but I think it just really brings in the image together. If you want to take this a step further, I do see a little bit of like stuff on the fridge and this bug right here. Control Shift Alt N creates a new layer. Let's go ahead and get the, which one is it? The spot healing brush tool, J on the keyboard if you want to use a keyboard shortcut. Sample all layers, make sure that's turned on. I'm going to zoom in here. And since we have like a pretty straight line, I'm going to click once, hold down Shift, and click again. That's going to make a straight line. And then the rest of them are pretty much just simple dabs in there. Let's get this guy out of here. I think that should be pretty good. Although this is bothering me. Let's see if I can't smooth it out. I have an idea. I'm creating a new layer. I'm going to set this to lighten, and I'm going to just get the paintbrush tool, set this to a low opacity. I'm going to sample the color nearest it, which is just a little softer brown, and I'm just going to paint. Look at that. Look at that. That's cool, isn't it? So from a distance, it's not as noticeable. I don't want to go too far with it, but that's pretty cool. I like that you can do that. Control Shift F4 is going to flatten everything, and we're going to save that back into Lightroom. Make sure that's a 5-star picture. And then from here, we can just do our verticals. I like to do my verticals in Lightroom post Photoshop, just so I can have the full image to work with, just in case I need to relayer anything over it. If I'm doing like a recomposite, I think everything looks good. If anything, I want to just darken up this a smidge, so it's got a little bit more color in there. So that's pretty much it. Now, I know I talk through all this, and talking through it kind of makes the video longer, but when you're doing this in real time, it's super quick. And especially if you've got it down to like a science like I do, to where you can just go into a house, pop a flash behind you, left side, right side, any other adjacent areas, and you know that when you edit it, that's going to look good. And you can basically use that workflow for every room, no matter the size. Now, sometimes you're going to get a pretty long room. Basically, you split the room into sections. So like, let's say this was a really long room. I would do here, right here in this corner. I would do right here in the corner by the couch. I would do right here by the curtain. And then I would do another one by the fridge. So you kind of make a zigzag formation throughout the room. That's going to basically even out your light when you go and blend it. Hopefully you find this useful. That's pretty much it. Take care.